Now, it is Saturday, so my expectations of who will be here for the live portion are quite low, quite low. And yes, I still have my cable shirt on. So after last night, there's a large power outage. Whoa, large power outage in Philadelphia. And yeah, that's a thing. So if you'll bear with me as I adjust my camera and whatnot, we're going to have a good session here. But you know how we do it around here, Runehammer. It's low pressure, right? It's low pressure. Okay, you're probably living upside down right now. So let's remedy that real quick. Just a second. Got my coffee. Got numerous pens and styli over here. All right, so you're living the upside down life. That's no good. So let's go back here and like this. There we go. There we go. Is this even in here? Oh, all right, there we go. There we are. Let's get you a little bit more. So hi, everybody. Don't expect too much verbal shenanigans. Really just giving you a little glimpse inside my own little drawing table here for a Saturday session. I know that people all over the world, they it could be morning somewhere, it could be afternoon where you are, whatever. Hello, hi. Wanted to jump back on YouTube after the power outage last night and keep playing around, talking about and enjoying the sort of innovative and fun mechanics in Crown and Skull. So what I wanted to do for this session, wait, which way am I going to want to go here for let's see the opposite page? Well, we'll worry about that when we'll jump off that bridge when we get to it. So the idea here was to sort of visually plot some of the core game mechanics in Crown and Skull. Now, I know a lot of you out there probably have already jumped in on the Crown and Skull presale, which is going to end Monday night. But for those of you who are still kind of saying, what the hell is this system? What is this all about? I don't even know what you're doing. I just wanted to get into a little bit in a visual sense. You guys know I think like to do these kind of mind maps where I think about concepts in a visual sense. And I just kind of wanted to do that. So this will be good to have on the archive if you can't hang around. I know everybody has stuff to do on Saturdays. But we'll have this up on the channel in the archive. As you can see, the MORUT is in quite the substantial tome of late. Some new additions here. This page I'm really excited about. This is just all script, and it's just kind of crazy. Let me see if I can just master this this camera. You guys would really be cracking up if you saw how I'm doing this camera. It is so janky. It's just so anyways, I just wanted to do this great page here, and this is basically just a treatise on spell casting and its relationships to sort of dark and dead gods, the outer gods. And it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sort of precepts of casting spells when you're tangling with dark gods, sort of gods that aren't bright and benevolent. They are either long dead or darkly dreaming, or whatever version of that you like to. And then over here we have some a bit of an architectural analysis of Frogkin and how they build these pagoda-like structures. So anyway, the subjects of the MORUT are definitely wide-ranging. Here's a piece that I've been working on. Again, sort of the outer god concept has been a little bit on my mind. And I just kind of wanted to, I'm going to Burning Con here pretty soon. And if I do get a chance to run a game at that gathering, then I was going to do this kind of doorway to this sort of this Cthulhu character that's kind of in here and stuff. I don't know. I think visually, and so I just run with visual concepts. That's just how I think. I don't really worry about so much what it is, just more so that I do it. That's kind of my mindset. So I'm going to move over to this left page here. Or am I? Or am I just going to use this guy right here? We can just use this one and make our life easy, and then I'll go backward later. Okay, that way you guys just can get right into it. So there you go. You can pretty much see what you need to see. This is the page I'm working on. The only part you're going to miss out on is this corner. So right about there is the edge of your visibility. Let me give you a little more. There, you can almost see my whole page, just missing out on this teeny little corner. Okay, so what are we going to do here? First of all, let's set ourselves up for success and follow the ancient way. So let me have this. And thanks for, those of you who are tuning in here. Happy Saturday, everybody. Here I got my TWSBI Diamond fountain pen. This is a life-changing pen here. And all my rules and sort of text lines and all that stuff in the MORUT, I just do in a very relaxed fashion. I don't like to stress out about it. So I just eyeball everything. So you can see I just kind of eyeball the ruler and just pop a line. And they're like, hey, sure, it's perfect. Right? Just eyeball it and just lay it down and just not worry about it so much. Since this is my project, and it's here for me to enjoy, I don't really feel a reason to, be uptight about it, basically. Also, I find that if you just are comfortable with a ruler and just let yourself enjoy, you do get great results. It just, like I wouldn't tell a carpenter that. Carpenters need to, measure twice and cut once. So I usually put a teeny little flourish in each corner to get started. And right away, sort of as a creative person right now, I'm kind of like role playing, right? I'm role playing this sort of scribe character who is going to be, well, this is a funny form of role playing because I'm a scribe character who is basically expressing like meta level knowledge, right? Because I'm going to be talking about game mechanics. So as a character in Crown and Skull, that's very fourth wall for me to be talking about game mechanics, but you guys know how I am. I'm like Deadpool. I am not shy at all with the fourth wall. I happily shatter the fourth wall. So we'll just keep this guy on the ready line here. Done with him for now. Delicious, delicious coffee. Trying to keep my coffee mug in view so you have a feeling of who and what I am. Now, a lot of the MORUT, you've noticed, has a very specific kind of look, and that is due to the use of these little glorious bubbies right here. Brown Sharpies. I know. Yeah, I'll be keeping an eye on the comments where I can, Esben. So, of course, feel free to express yourself. So let's get into the title here. Crown and Skull Core Mechanics, right? Okay, so there's my title. And then back to my TWSBI, my fountain pen. That's the pen that I use for all my written scripts. So that's that all script page I showed you. That took quite a lot of time. So this is, let's see, and I've been practicing this font here for several weeks now, so I'm getting pretty natural with it. A treatise on the fundamental game systems employed by Crown and Skull. We're almost empty on the TWSBI here, so I'll give it a little pop. This is sort of core aspects visualized for easy reference by, and this is kind of like obvious text, but I just like to have script, player and GM. Okay. So just one of the things that makes the MORUT like this role-playing kind of experience is, yeah, these statements, is my font a little bit hard to read? And are these statements somewhat obvious? Absolutely. But as the role player of the sort of the scribe here, like that's where you get this feel that makes this project so fun to sort of experience, right? So it's a little different than doing your normal journal. It's a little more in character. Esben, all you're going to be missing out is the satisfaction of being in the very opening wave of Crown and Skull, Esben. As soon as inventory reaches the Runehammer warehouse, you'll be able to buy a copy. So you're really not missing anything. It's just it's a way for the diehard shield wall to really come through and kick this off. Crown and Skull is going to be here to stay for quite some time. So no worries. Okay, so let's get into this. If you're not familiar with Crown and Skull yet, if you don't have the full PDF and you're wondering, what is this game all about? Let's get into at least a summary or a very condensed form of the game mechanics that make Crown and Skull what it is. Okay, so let's just sort of start with the fundamentals. Now, I don't know how to draw this, but I'm going to wing it. This is supposed to be a D20 with a 1 on it. Okay, so we'll shade it in a little bit here. So again, like as an artist, it'd be really easy to get hung up on like exactly how do I draw an icosahedron, but I just want to keep trucking. So here's our D20, and we have roll under D20. Okay, so one of the fundamental aspects of Crown and Skull is that you're going to be rolling skills and defense and other things on a D20, and a 1 is always what you're gunning for. It's roll under things. This is the MORUT. If you're confused what this is and what this is about, you can go back to some of my other streams where this book has been worked on. But this is basically a massive, it's sort of what I like to call the world's largest game master book. So anyways, the first thing is we're dealing with D20 roll under. So I'm just kind of, I don't know exactly what I'm designing here. I'm just kind of imagining that this character I'm playing is building this sort of treatise on game mechanics, but in the world of Crown and Skull itself. So I'm existing in a strange existential space right now. Okay, so that's the first part. The second part, and these aren't like every single mechanic in the game, but they're the ones that I think sort of set Crown and Skull apart. So we have this little piece, and then I think I want to get into this piece right here. What else? And then we have attrition, right? And then we have tactic. So let's do attrition. So what can I do as just a starter image for attrition? It would be something silly like and then one of these guys, and then a funny, like overly anatomical heart. Dang. So as you can see, like I don't have a lot of balance in my layout here. I don't have a lot of, what am I even doing? It's kind of a mess, right? But I'm just letting it happen. I can see I'm going crooked with the layout right now, and so I can kind of correct myself with some some stuff like this, and I can kind of balance things like by doing these. I can have these guys like hovering. And just in time, I'm just going to have faith that this is going to come through cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. And then here we have these guys. And they kind of have a little burst on the side. And I'll, be obviously explaining what I'm doing here as I go. I'm just getting the pictures in because the pictures are what kind of get me going, light me up, and make me happy. If I got fun pictures, I can make it through all the other steps. Relative ease. And my job right now, drawing right in front of a live audience, 56 of you, is to sort of just stay calm and not focus on entertaining at all. Just to do what I do when I'm in silence by myself, which is just focus on drawing craft. I definitely with this last one just really kind of nerded out on it. Like when I was doing this one, I was just really just focused in and living inside that drawing. And not using any pencils or anything, by the way. I'm just going straight to Sharpie. You know how I do it around here. All right. So this little guy, I can give him the little sharp corners. Okay, so now let's label the 4 things that I've labeled. So first of all, we have roll under D20, and this applies to skills, defense, flat checks. And notice too, I'm kind of going to my sort of modern font here because I'm trying to make a sort of a somewhat youthful page. And I mix like my script and my modern font. I just like let whatever happen wants to happen. Just kind of existing. All right. I think that's most of that. Yeah, that's most of that. Okay, and then we have phases. And then we have attrition. And then we have attack. All right, great. So each one of these has some very simple notes underneath it, like rounds divide into 5 phases. Hero on any one, foe on 1 to 3. And I'll explain these in just a second. Attrition. Okay, we have skills and equipment. Equal durability. And we have descending defense. And we have shot to the heart. Shot to the heart. I always use a lot of the goofy little catchphrases in my design language so that they're kind of easy to remember. And then attack. We have roll damage against foe def to hit. And this is one of the really simpler. I hope everyone's going to find joy in this one. And Yokai Gall, my man, definitely gets a shout out on that one. Let's put some. Oh, hey, Tilly, you got the door open, huh? Okay, good job. All right. So we have the start of our page of work here. Okay, so first of all, when you're rolling skills and rolling defense as a reaction to enemy attacks, in Crown and Skull, almost every roll that really matters, that's really exciting, is done by players. So as we all know, commonly referred to as player-facing rolls. That's what's happening here. You're going to be rolling your D20, and you run a roll low. Second of all, attack rolls, just like in Into the Odd or Cairn being a real favorite of mine by Yokai Gall, you do not roll to hit. You just roll the damage of whatever's doing damage, and it needs to exceed the defense of your foe to land damage. So this not only excises one roll from the game, but also just serves as a 2-hit roll. So if I have an enemy with 2 defense, I'm rolling 1d8 for my sword attack, right? I roll a 1. I've rolled damage under the foe defense, but that also sort of serves as a miss, right? And you can add penalties, and you can play with these rolls quite a bit, but it just removes one entire layer of roll from play, which is great. And at first, a lot of people are kind of go, wait a minute, huh? But man, you really get used to this very, very quickly. Okay, so this one, phases. Every round is divided into 5 phases. Heroes will always go on one of these, but foes go on 1 to 3 of these. And so it gives a chance that a lot of games, I think, miss, which is the ability to really challenge heroes by being faster and doing more. And that's the beginning of this. We're going to talk about tactics in a second, but every round being divided into phases gives players a bunch of adjustability too on their sort of order. And there's a lot here. The origin of this was a 12-phase system in the old Fantasy Hero book from 1985, but this is sort of a very cleaned up and simplified way of doing the same awesome time system. Then finally, for this little section, we have attrition. One of the craziest things, most lunatic things in Crown and Skull is that you do not have hit points. You also don't have stats, but you don't have hit points. Your skills and your equipment act as your hit points. When you are injured, you cross off skills and equipment. And the role play here is something to the effect of, I got bashed in the knee, and therefore I'm going to cross off my jump skill. Now, in a lot of cases, attrition is temporary, right? You need to find rest and safety, and you can recover your skills by healing yourself, by resting, and you can recover equipment via repair. Some forms of attrition, though, the worst ones, actually will destroy equipment. Skills can never be destroyed. Anyway, very quickly, this is kind of a lot like this one over here. This, at first, you're kind of like, what? But when you start getting used to it, oh my goodness, the dawning and the sort of the epiphanies by players. I can testify, having run lots of these sessions, those epiphanies are really great to watch, of like how fun it is to role play attrition damage. Now, finally, we have shot to the heart. If you have no attrition left and you take a hit, you've taken a shot to your heart, you've taken a sword right through the chest, and you will die at the end of the next phase 5 unless assisted. So there's no death saves, there's no death process. If you take a shot to the heart, phase 5 comes around, you're gone, you're dead. So as you probably, a lot of you are inferring right now, yes, there is a bit of a death spiral here, right? Because if I'm losing skills and equipment as the battle goes, I'm actually decaying sort of as a character. And yes, it is. It's a freaking death spiral. I think that term is often used as a negative, but I see it as a real positive. I think it makes things freaking exciting. And it also forces characters to look outside the immediate solutions that they rely on so much and start to rethink things. Same with skills in Crown and Skull. There's a really wild rule people are getting used to slowly, which is that if you don't have a skill doing something and it's an extraordinary feat, you can't even try. Since you don't have stats to roll, you can't even attempt it. So let's take bending bars as a perfect example. No normal people can bend bars, okay? You can't even try. Like, you just are going to pop your shoulder. So there's no strength roll to try to make. But if you have a muscle skill, okay, let's give it a try. And what this does is it works very strongly to dehomogenize characters. I've always thought that the 6 stat system that we've all known for so many years really makes a lot of characters very, very similar, in that at any time you can kind of roll a stat if you're kind of improvising or you're a little bit out of your specialty. Not here. No roll allowed at all on something like bending bars. Now, if I need to, drag a friend out of the mud, that's not something that no one can do. Like, people can do that. And so then I'll allow what we call a flat roll in Crown and Skull, which is a 6 or less on a D20. So that's just like a blank. You're not skilled in this, but it's also something that almost any person could do. So give me a thing. And then I'll also do what I call a crit or nothing. So roll me a 1 on a d20 if you want to try this crazy thing and you don't have a skull or you have no chance. But if you really want to play as written, it's really fun to just not allow attempts on unusual acts if you don't have the skill. So like jumping over a wall, for example, no normal person can do that. So you can't roll dex to try to jump over a wall. You can't even roll. You can't even attempt it. You just run into the wall. But a person with a jump skill, now I'm interested, you can roll for it. And what this does is it just keeps the players on their toes looking for new solutions. So roll to attack right away, note to hit roll. That's a great one. We have roll under d20. We have time divided into phases, and we have the attrition system. And this is like some of the fundamental stuff now. Now, I'm obviously not going to get into everything of like what makes enemies different from players and all this kind of stuff, but we will make a sub note right here on foe on 1 to 3. So foes, let's do that, can take action on 1 to 3 of these phases. 3 is nuts. I hope y'all are seeing that. So if heroes are going maybe on, there's a leader hero here and there's a mage or a healer that's going on 4 and there's some roguey guys going in the middle. That's this character, like say our tank is going on phase 1. He isn't going to take another turn until the next phase 1, but you could have a monster who's going on phase 1, phase 3, and phase 5. So it's a much more effective system if you want to challenge a group of players. Anybody who's been game mastering for any amount of time knows it can be very hard to challenge savvy and resourceful players, and this really will help you. Okay, so let's dive into this a little bit. I'm going to do one of my weird little things. There we go. Okay, now the added piece to phases is enemy tactics. Now, a lot of people have said this aspect of Crown and Skull makes it very suited to solo or like fighting fantasy style play. And it wasn't really come up with for that purpose, but I can see that, absolutely. Okay, so enemy tactics. Enemy tactics, roll a d6. Now, if you're a game master, you're like me. You're always having trouble deciding what a monster is going to do, right? What is it going to do on this? Am I going to be supremely strategically cruel and do the most impactful, intense thing that the monster can do and really like lay down the law with these heroes and hit them hard, breath weapon all the time kind of stuff? Or am I going to kind of move and recover with this monster? What am I going to do? And these decisions can often really sway a battle. So in Crown and Skull, this is resolved just like in Dragonbane or in Forbidden Lands. This is resolved by rolling enemy tactics. So you've got 3 outcomes on a d6 here. You've got the 1 outcome, you've got the 2 to 5 outcome, and you got the 6 outcome. Every time an enemy takes an action on a phase, they're going to roll a tactic for each of those that they have. Some enemies have up to 3 tactics in a single phase. So yeah, your mind should be exploding a little bit. Some enemies, by this reasoning, would have 9 tactics in one round. That would be an insanely fast and powerful foe. But anyway, so these are very simple. This is displace or fortify. So if I roll a 1 on my enemy tactic, they're going to either do some kind of displacement activity, meaning they'll change targets, they'll fall back, they'll hide, they'll take wing, they'll go up in the air, something like this. Generally, the 1 in tactics is a non-harmful tactic choice. So players tend to root for it. Now, 2 to 5, this is what you could just call standard attack. So, this is your claw bite kind of stuff. And this is what you're going to get most of the time. If an enemy is coming into a scene, they generally do what we call move to engage. They use their turn not rolling tactics, but they just move where they can engage. And then we start rolling tactics. But generally, a lot of the time, they're doing this 2 to 5. And then 6 is the brutal one. This is what we call AoE or power attack. So AoE, as everybody knows, is area of effect. And so when you get a 6 on a tactic, generally you are telling all your heroes to roll defense or all your heroes to roll evade. as a response to some kind of massive area attack. So the 6 being rolled as an enemy tactic is a moment of pure white-hot dread for players. And, just as a GM tip for the Crown and Skull GMs out there, I strongly recommend kind of what I mentioned in my blog, the classic oopses. I really recommend drawing everyone's attention to these tactic rolls at the table before you roll them. So you say, you guys, if I roll a 6 right here, it's going to be like an area attack. And like one of you has has no armor left. And the other one is like over here. And that would be bad. And so I just want everybody to know the stakes here. If I get a 6 here, it's really bad for the group. I really like to reinforce stakes and clarity on dice rolls, especially when it comes to tactics. Alrighty then. This is a lot of what makes Crown and Skull tick. Now, in a slightly different area, well, I wouldn't call like character creation and all that stuff, hex rolling and the emergent world and all that stuff. That really doesn't count as core mechanics, right? So let's get into foes and expand foes. Because one of the things, if I'm trying to learn a system, one of the first things I'll look into is looking at like an enemy stat block, right? So let's kind of just address that. And we'll get a little more into the decorative aspect of this page once I'm done with the functional aspect. So let's go enemy stats. Enemies are so fun to make in Crown and Skull because they're really quite simple to remember their stat blocks and how to build them. So you just go poppity pop, HP, ATK, DEF, phase, and tactics. That's it. So HP is number, I guess, equaling amount, damage to kill. I mean, come on, we don't need to figure out HP, right? We all know what that means. ATK, that is penalty to defense. Penalty to hero defense. So remember, since heroes are rolling defense rolls when enemies attack, enemies are not rolling to attack. If an enemy is particularly skillful in an attack, that stat is going to serve as a penalty to a player defending. All right, so death. This is beat with damage to harm. So remember, not beat to hit, because in a way we don't really have a to hit. It's like, are you doing harm? And one of the ways you can see is like if a monster has a defense of 4 and you roll 3 damage, you're still hitting him. I mean, we're cool in this world. We don't do like air balls. We don't do whiffs. We just hit them and it doesn't get through the armor, or they parry, or the blade goes sideways or whatever. Phase. This is which phases equal action. And this is 1 to 3. I'll say up to 3. So the worst monsters you can face will be going on like phase 1, 2, and 3, or 1, 3, 4, or 2, 4, 5, right? That's a lot of enemy actions. And then what makes it worse is this is actions per phase up to 3. Now, again, if you're with me here, if you're seeing through this, there should be a cold chill of fear. There are monsters doing 9 things in one round before a character is, rebooting for the next turn, right? 9 things, 9 tactics dice will be tumbled on your worst possible monster. That is vastly more actions than you typically get in almost any system I know of. And it's not to say that everything is like that, but if you do want to present diversified, complex challenges, this pair of systems right here is very powerful. So just to emphasize that statement, I'll continue my little circuit board. So basically the implication there that phases mixed with phase and tactic down here makes for a potent combination of synergy in enemy design. So now, tactics. There's one more thing left to do if I'm designing a monster or understanding a monster, right? Well, what are they? Well, here's where I go back to this. So let's say I'm designing a monster just from scratch. I need to come up with 3 things that they might do, and they're listed already right here, right? So I'm going to give them a displace type action, which may be like fall back and increase by 1 defense, or change targets, or take flight and become unreachable. Then for my middle one, claw. Maybe it does basic attrition. Maybe it does destroy attrition. Maybe it does brutal attrition. These are all attrition types that will affect heroes right here. And then for my 6th one, maybe it conquers down and shoots all these spines out, and that'll be my 6th roll. So when you do this little set of tasks, you've designed a monster, and it is ready to roll using dice and not using a bunch of your brain. I mean, you're still the game master. You're going to have to make the monster move to engage and things like this. But a lot of this, once you have a monster, it will run itself. And we got a couple items coming up here. If you just go straight to the damage roll, how does casting something non-damage like Charm Person spell roll? Well, great question. Spells have their own completely custom built system in Crown and Skull. And if I cast let's just go with your example, Charm Person. If my target has a magic skill, which on a monster, I usually won't notice or won't make a note of something like that. But if I think, this monster should have something, I'll just make a little side note, right? Like, I'll just put magic 11, then I would get that magic save against you. Your spell just goes off on its own. It just happens. But in most cases, I wouldn't even save. You cast Charm Person. Yes, you charmed person. Mark that spell off as expended and move on. So there's a lot of this stuff where you sort of have to pull out a little bit from some of our really ingrained habits. Jason, agree. Destroy attrition shows up in monsters as much as the monsters I've provided in the book, and as much as you decide as the game master, depending on what you like your game to feel like. You can range your monsters from basic attrition to destroy to brutal, and it's all you need is the one word. This is what's amazing. You really don't need how much damage this monster does. You just need one word. Is it going to do basic, flesh, equipment, destroy, or brutal? And especially once you sort of learn these words, you just shout it at your players. Okay, you missed your defense roll, take destroy attrition. And they're like, oh, right? How many and how often does it show up in the monsters? Well, Aaron, that is absolutely up to which monster you use from the book, how you modify them, and how you run things as a game master. Yeah, Tactic 6 is AoE. I mean, AoE or a power attack. It's basically, like Deep Quanta said, it's the scary thing. When a monster rolls Tactic 6, that's the scary thing. And I think it's more fun to know that it's just scary to players than exactly what it may be. So we have some other elements here. We have custom built equipment. We have hero points. We have the progression system. But for a fun ending here, this really is a lot of the core mechanics. Let's do what gave the book its name. Because not everybody may be familiar with this yet. So when players reach about 25 points earned during play, right? So and the average session is going to award about 3 hero points. 3 to 5. So after 3 to 5 sessions, up to 7 sessions, someone in the game world is going to notice their deeds and approach them and force this question upon them. What do you choose, the crown or the skull? How often would you say players are supposed to get? There is no supposed to get into combat. That is completely up to your table, up to your story, up to your game, up to your campaign. The word supposed to, I don't think necessarily fits in RPG land. Okay. So after a certain amount of time, the deeds of the heroes will be noticed, and someone important in your game world will approach these heroes and pose them with a question. Who do you serve, the crown or the skull? Now, the crown is the force of law, it's patience, it's order, it's structure, it's loyalty, it's kindness, it's humility. And the skull, I think often it's mistaken as evil right up front, but it's absolutely not evil. The skull is a bit chaotic, it's self-reliant. And here's Tom coming in with the right question, right? The crown seems like the good guys. The skull isn't evil, but they seem kind of evil. I don't know what a crazy libertarian means, but no, if you read the text, Tom, the skull represents self-reliance, freedom, doing it my way. I'll go on my own. You could almost say that in some ways, Aragorn transitions from being one who serves the skull and then later in the story becomes one who serves the crown. So it's not good or evil. And there's a ring that's associated with it. Also, when this choice is posed to characters, they can't choose neither or they will become the enemy of both. And as the game progresses in Crown and Skull, players and characters should be noticing that heroes and, well, characters in general in their world can be spotted wearing either a crown or skull ring. And this is a little bit of a subtle or nuanced tell in the world of kind of like, hey, is that guy back there wearing a skull ring? And this is posed to an individual Pyro Knight, an individual, not to the group. And a good group should be a mixture of these things. This isn't good and evil. And it not being good and evil, I think, is what adds an element of nuance. And I guess you could, if you really wanted to shoot the moon on the commentary, an element of reality. Because I, as a personal individual, as the author, I don't really believe in the binary concept of good and evil. I believe it is a vastly complex question. That's where I'm at. And I think that the world is more interesting when viewed as a quilt rather than sort of a coin flip. And so this to me adds to that. So the crown is, reliance on self, freedom. And this one is faith in order, loyalty. See, and those should feel anything but diametric. If they feel diametric, then that would defeat the purpose, right? We want them to feel a little bit complex, a little bit hard to understand. And a group being made up of both crown ring wearers and skull ring wearers should have a lot to talk about by the campfire, right? But it doesn't make them enemies. And I think that's a place to go with this game that can be very interesting, obviously, to the taste of your players and your table. Everybody's going to be different how they process this stuff. Okay, so now I'm feeling pretty good. I feel like if anybody came into this knowing absolutely nothing about Crown, you should feel like you know quite a bit more now. And nothing to hide here. If you're looking for a deeper dive into all this stuff, you can grab the free player's guide at runehammer.online. It's about the first 70-some pages. Yeah, unity versus singularity. The crown sort of ring wearer believes that our best chance to survive is if we organize and if we follow the old ways, and the king gives the orders and the captain figures out how to execute those orders and the soldier fulfills those orders. And that method works. This is a Confucian, right? This is a person who believes in social fabric. The skull sees that as a trapping and as bureaucracy and as a waste of energy. And you're actually just sort of tricking yourselves. It all comes down to the moment of the individual will to survive, So now I want to just sort of bolster my page. And this is crazy, but I get so many questions about how to make sort of my Game Master's Journal look like it does. I get easily as many questions on that as I do on, actual game stuff. And I guess the first answer is just patience. Just when you're kind of done with a journal page, like you have the sort of the salient information, you're not done. You've only just begun. And that's when you go back and give it a feeling of doneness. And as you can see, one of the first things I do to present that feeling of doneness is I go back to what I've drawn. And you guys know my mantra, just go back and draw it again, right on top of itself. And your hand will stray from the first line, and where it strays, just fill in the difference, and you get this much heavier, more completed look to your diagrams and your lines and stuff. And you can see that already as we're working through this. Okay, so now that we have this kind of fun little diagram, let's come back with ye old fountain and do kind of a little bit what I'm first of all, I think I might need some ink. Well, I don't know. We'll burn that village when we get to it. Let's do some little setups so I can make some additional notes. And by setups, I just mean little ruled areas. These are sort of a tradition in the MORUT. It's almost like the scribe that is reading this like a century later is adding notes to the manuscript by the order of his abbot. Always go down when you're doing these so you can go parallel to the previous line. A little pro tip there. Make your life easier. If you go up, you can't see anything. Okay. Where else can I put a little note? Put a little note down here. And then put a little note right up here. A little introductory note. Okay, cool. So you can see that just kind of starts to give us a feel, right? Like it isn't always just about, function and purpose. Sometimes it's just cool old books have a feel to them, which is what my latest blog was really about. Yeah, and we're going to revisit a little bit of these more details, but we'll get to that. Okay. So let's crank down the TWSBI, get the ink flowing hefty. You can always kind of see the gooiness in there as you push the ink through. There it goes. All right. Real quick, let's go back to Esben. I started a group, read the free. Yeah. Use 5 phases. It works wonders. Oh, that's great news. How come you landed on 5? Well, originally it was 12, as I mentioned in Fantasy Hero, and that's what I played in high school. But it's just too much detail. And if you do 4, there's no middle. Like 4 was my next choice, but then there's like no middle, right? You're either in the beginning half or the second half, and so 5 just seemed quite natural. I never do a group more than 5 people, ever. So to me, that was going to be a good balancing point. If every player wanted to be in a different phase, they could. We've had some fun situations. We have like best friend players who always go in the same phase together, so they have kind of a Merry and Pippin vibe. And there's a lot of different things you can do with it. Okay, so first the introductory aspect. What should we be saying here? Something that that thing that no common man can do without skill is impossible. That thing no common man can do without skill is impossible. That's a very, very tight way of expressing my skilled or no role concept. Really happy about that. I've never put it into such a succinct form before, so that's great. Do the books have marker ribbons? They do not. They do not. Putting the marker ribbon onto the book really kind of messed up the price. It really does add a lot of price. I do love my marker ribbons. I've put them in some of my previous books, but I've actually found that I don't use them as much as I thought I used them. I actually wound up using index cards and little stick-ons. With almost all my books, I just find my ribbon just hanging out in the back. Isn't that hilarious? So rather than tacking cost onto each stinking book for something I don't really passionately use, I just thought, well, let's just pass the savings on, because I really wanted to keep the prices reasonable. And that's getting harder and harder in this world, I'll tell you. Okay, so let's use this note section here for phases. So I'm going to add a fun little guy like this. Okay, so sort of what we were just talking about a little bit, right? Why 5 and what's this? And it was crazy because Esmond described it as working wonders. This really does a lot of work to resolve and give detail to and simplify the so-called initiative problem, right? You know, initiative is this kind of ancestral word for basically turn order. So find you the many nuances of combat time hidden in the 5 phases. And in the Crown and Skull book, there is actually a section called The Nuances of Phases. It's kind of a deep dive for game masters about really what's going on here and what can really be done once savvy players really start getting it. So let's see. Choose wisely and often by your knowledge of the foe. Right? So when players start learning more about monsters, more about their timing, more about how they're doing things, so that when they counts to that monster again in the future, right? That luscious monster knowledge that I know players love, they can use that into how they distribute themselves into the phases in that subsequent battle to their advantage. All right, Tom, what's up? Thoughts on group size? Absolutely. I think it's the same as anything. 2 to 4 is where I live. I really think 3 is the coolest group. 3 is a little more perilous, but 4 is always cool. Pyronide, yeah, you did miss it. It is you don't switch it once combat begins. If it changed every round, it would become the most cumbersome, game-slowing mechanic ever. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about attrition in this little note area. And we're going to say, like, we're going to be funny on this one. Pepper not thy world with loot and found gear. All is rare and precious here. And it rhymes even. Okay, so several GMs have already asked if equipment and skills can be used as attrition, wouldn't players just load up on equipment by looting corpses all the time? And the simple answer is here's like, whoever said that you can just always loot corpses? Who said that's just a thing? Has it been around for years? Yes, but we're going to break free of it. And with my groups, I've just said in this world, enemies usually lose their gear is destroyed when they're killed. Like the final blow of the battle axe cuts the helmet and the chest plate in half, and one boot flies into a puddle, right? You don't loot corpses here. And as for found treasure, there almost is none. Maybe you find 1 item per scene, 1 to 2 items per scene. But yes, since gear becomes your durability, gear is your hit points in many ways. As the GM, just be upfront about it. You're not handing gear out. It must be bought with hit points, or in very rare cases, found. But in a battlefield of corpses, you find 1 sword that isn't corroded, broken, chipped, or stuck in a rock or whatever. There's, look, by some miracle, like that sword is fine after this big battle. Okay. All right. And then we have one right down here. Woe betide the 6. Just a brief note there. Woe betide the 6. Make sure your players know that they're dreading the coming of the 6. And then finally, see, let's get some more ink. See beyond the simplicity of so-called good and evil. Great. So now see how we got a more complete feel to the page, right? We kind of got our diagram. We kind of got some notes. And now I can feel this kind of air around the sides that isn't really sitting well with me. There's just too much oxygen flowing around the page. So I'm going to add some border lines. I'm breaking my own rule here because I'm covering up what I'm going parallel to, but that's just the battlefield conditions. I always break my own rules. You all know that about me. A lot of people who have known me many years kind of make fun of me for it. How intensely I'll dislike a thing one year and then a decade later I'll say it's the only thing that matters in life. I'm totally that guy. All right, so there we go. Now we got a little more sensible boundary. It just makes me feel more like this is complete. Now I'm just going to add my little flourishes that I do. I don't know why I do these. I just do them because they put me at ease. Almost like like a poster from Wild West times or something. I had a lot of these little flourishes, like Dr. Bronner's Magic Whiskey. And it would have all these little curly cues on it and stuff. Now, usually, too, I'll put a... can you see that corner? Oh, that's the corner you can't see. So, right there, right? So, usually, I'll put a thumbprint on there. And the way to do the thumbprint, I need a disposable surface. Yeah. Just have a piece of printer paper here. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'll do it in this corner so you can see. So I just basically will pump my pen until I get a drip. Whoop, there we go. On goes the thumb. Dry it off a little bit, and then there you go. There's your little blood thumbprint. So you know that sort of scribe character that I'm kind of role-playing in my mind. He commits to the veracity of these words with his blood, which is just ink, but that's okay. All right. What am I doing? I don't know. Just drawing stuff, little doodads and thingy-mabobsits. All right, so let's call it good there. Let's cap off ye old fountain pen. And let's grab the gold. Here's my gold marker. I'm do like a gold face on this D20. Do a gold trace here. Do little gold corners. Chili, baby. Chilson. Now, I do feel like that D20 needs a little more magic. Let me see if I can. There we go. Got my silver Sharpie here. So we'll put like one of these faces is kind of catching a silver metallic light. Boing. Maybe our shield and sword have a metallic edge. Yeah, sure. I think that's it, honestly. I think that's the page. So a good example, I guess, of sort of visually mapping. Well, yeah, it is. I mean, Name of the Rose does the thumbprint great in a way, but I've done them on previous pages too, here and there. I think it's just a fun thing to do to give the book this kind of personalized kind of feel. There's a couple other ones in here. Now I'm just looking at the comment section in case you're wondering if I'm just vapor locking over here. Are you scared of ripping through the spine of a book that large? No. I've caught myself glancing at the binding already. At this? Oh, you're like concerned? I don't really think that way. I don't think that way. Yes, it's probably going to rip. It's probably, this thing will not last forever. I'll just squirt some glue in there. I don't know. That's some real cart before the horse thinking. I want to make the book, not worry about if it's going to last forever. So I will continue. There's thumbprints right on the cover there. You can see 2 big, hefty blood thumbprints. The interior cover. So, my friends and fellow knuckleheads, there. So I'm going to have to go back and do this page, and then this page. But I feel like this is the Crown and Skull core mechanics page, and also just used as a sort of a method to introduce everybody to what the system really is about. If you're interested in getting a book, if you're interested in joining this kind of exodus with a lot of us into making this our kind of central system at our tables, and if it's a fit, then hell yeah, welcome. Otherwise, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Have a great weekend. A wonderful Saturday and Sunday. Remember, go out there, do something nice for somebody. And if everybody does that, then I'll tell you what, this world is going to be a better place. Until next time, I'm Hank Inferno. And this is the MORUT. See you on that internet, y'all. Later.